So feedback. What would you do different? What did you see in the room that you liked? A couple comments on things you liked, how that worked. I would make one observation. This framework is pretty handy. Of course, in a generic situation, they wouldn't know you were working off these questions. So just kind of say, I'm good at such and such, and I'm currently working on it. Those things just kind of start to flow. It's a pretty good framework. John?
I think the most effective ones were the ones that were most concise, where it says this, then that. Left it at that, leaving open a conversation rather than trying to give too much information and trying to weave around getting the answer out. Just 3 sentences and you've done.
When I was actively job searching in the IT space, I would introduce myself as my name's Heather. I get stuff done, mostly in projects, mostly in IT. And if they couldn't remember that, and they're just trying to be really memorable, I get stuff done, mostly in projects, mostly in IT. So I think I agree that conciseness is memorable and will stick with the person. Comments more there?
I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right. I should make mine much shorter to a one sentence or one phrase thing. And one of the things, I'm imagining everybody in these situations, and normally in a conversation you would say this and then you would follow up with a question to ask the other person. And just to be aware that you need to do that. Can I say one more thing? I wanted to offer my services, and there might be other people, for you to practice interviewing for your English.
Some comments?
Well, going through the interviewing process as I am now, what we're learning is that interviewers, they want one-word answers. And you, going into an interview, you need to already know what those answers are to the most common questions and not talk too much, which is something that I'm working on. One word, wait for the next question.
I don't know, it's not that I disagree with what's been said so far in terms of the commentary, but it seems to me there's a distinction between, you know, the kind of like mechanical, this is what I do, da-da-da-da-da, and maybe having a person create their own question. What question would you want to be asked if you were introducing yourself? Which allows the person to really say what they want to say. Now, I mean, these are provocative questions and have a lot of space to them. And I think I see a distinction between this kind of quick, you know, half-a-minute thing and somebody saying something that they're impassioned to talk about. To use Laura's speech as an example with the cat, where she, you know, she was just so enthusiastic. It was great. It was a great speech. But you know, there's a difference between fitting into a category and having an opportunity to say what you want to say.
Let me give this a little broader context of how I like to think about it as well, with two more ideas. Sharon Hill does a podcast. There's a couple of podcasts, actually. And one of her podcasts came out this week on networking, 1 minute long. And her advice was, if you want to be memorable in introductions and in networking situations, spend 80% of your time listening, only 20% of your time talking. And that's really profound, actually. So to your point, the point is actually to be listening. But at some point, they say, what do you do? And so when you respond in your 20% time, this is a framework to be concise with that, right? And then I think to build on what you're saying, Drew, an idea that has resonated with me over the years is I used to be really put off by this idea of small talk. It was just, what is the point of this small talk stuff? And then I read a description that has really worked for me. Remember the days of fax machines? And actually even PC modems, when they first started connecting, they made these horrible noises. Do you know what was going on there? These two systems were negotiating whether they had any common ground to transmit information. And one would send a signal, I'm going to talk to you at this speed, and the other would, and they would, over the course of a few seconds, negotiate a protocol and a transmit speed so they could connect and send the fax, right? That's actually what small talk is. That there's this sense of, for the first minute or so, we're kind of negotiating, is a conversation possible here? How are we going to talk? What is this conversation style going to be like? And what are we going to talk about? And so that's another reason to have some memorable substance in your introduction. You know, put something out there. Is there anything to hook on here? Meanwhile, you're listening to the other person for 80% of the time. time. Is there a hook there that I can grab onto? Is there something we can negotiate that then we can run with this conversation? That's really been helpful to me. And that fits in with this, in that I try to be concise. All right, well, let's start that opening volley of negotiation. What shall we talk about? Well, here's me, and I get stuff done, and mostly in projects. Is that something you can hook to? All right, you take it, you try it, until we find a topic that we can go with. I find that kind of interesting way to think about introductions. So you have to offer something. You have to put something out there. And then the 80% of the time you're listening, and what can I take, and where can I take this conversation? Every day, introducing yourself all the time. People who are the most concise, most thought through, are the most memorable. Let's remember.